February 19, 1945. Red Beach, Iwo Jima. A Seabee named Ben Massey climbed onto an unarmored Caterpillar D7 bulldozer and started cutting a path through 15-foot volcanic ash terraces so the Marine tanks behind him could get off the beach and reach the airfield. He had no armor plating on that cab. No weapon was mounted on the machine. Just a steel blade, a diesel engine, and a beach full of Marines who could not move forward without him. At noon, a Japanese sniper put a bullet through his neck. Another Seabee, Hollis Cash, pulled Massey off the seat, climbed up, and kept cutting. Elsewhere on the beach, 2 more unarmed operators were shot and killed, each in the operator's seat of the same Caterpillar, one after the other. A third Seabee finished the job by crouching below the cab and working the control levers from the floor, using a shovel handle and an axe handle, because putting your head above the cab line meant a bullet. That is not a war movie. That is the official history of Marine Corps engineers, and it happened on an island where the men in the operator's seat were the most exposed targets on the entire battlefield. 3 Naval Construction Battalions landed at Iwo Jima. The 31st was with the 5th Marine Division. The 133rd was with the 4th Marine Division. The 62nd served under the 5th Amphibious Corps. Roughly 7,000 Seabees were present at peak strength. Their motto was, "We build, we fight." At Iwo Jima, they did both at the same time. The first problem was the beach itself. Every planning document said the sand would be firm enough for vehicles. It was not. The volcanic ash was so soft and fine that the Navy's own after-action report compared it to loose cinder. Jeeps sank to their axles. DUKWs bogged down in seconds. Sherman tanks could not climb the terraces. There were 3 terraces running parallel to the surf, 8 to 15 feet high, and every vehicle that tried to push through them got stuck and became a target. Marines piled up behind the terraces with nowhere to go, because the exits off the beach did not exist yet. That is where the bulldozers became the most important machines in the Pacific. Caterpillar D7s, roughly 32,000 pounds, 103 horsepower, running tracks wide enough to float across the ash that swallowed everything else. And International Harvester TD-18s, 80 horsepower diesel crawlers, lighter but just as critical. One Seabee from the 133rd, named Marvin Nottingham, put it simply in a PBS documentary filmed almost 80 years later. He said the bulldozer was one of the few pieces of equipment that could operate in that sand because the tracks were wide. That is why the operators were so important. And that is why the snipers aimed at the seat. If you want to see how these operators built 3 airfields and sealed hundreds of cave positions under fire on an 8-square-mile island, hit like and subscribe. The solution to the beach problem came in 2 pieces. The first was Marsden matting, pre-hinged into 50-foot accordion-folded bundles loaded on sleds. There were more than 8 miles of it. The dozers would cut through a terrace, and the Seabees behind them would roll out the steel matting so the tanks and trucks could follow on a solid surface. The second piece was something that had never been used in combat before: armored bulldozers. Steel plate welded over the cab and the engine compartment, a top hatch for the operator to climb through, and a peephole to see where he was pushing. Iwo Jima was the first time in military history that armored bulldozers went into battle. The Marine Corps official monograph confirms it. A 19-year-old Marine engineer named Jesse Long, Jr. drove one of those armored D7s onto the beach. His joke on the landing ship was, "Don't drop me out here in the middle of the ocean, because this tractor cannot swim." Inside the 1-inch steel cab, mortar rounds were dropping all around him, and machine gun bullets hitting the armor sounded like popcorn popping. His regular tactic against pillboxes was to lower the blade, push a wall of black volcanic sand into the firing slit, and then a Marine behind him would throw a satchel charge through the gap, while the defenders were still digging out. Long earned the Silver Star on March 12th, when his dozer slipped over an embankment under heavy fire, and he climbed out of the cab, ran to a tank, unfastened its tow cable, and rigged the recovery while bullets hit the ground around him. Most of the dozers on D-Day were unarmored. That is the part that does not make sense until you realize there were not enough armored cabs for every machine, and the work could not wait. So Seabees sat in open cabs on top of 15,000-pound machines, 6 feet above the ash, the tallest moving targets on the beach, and they cut roads anyway. This is the kind of story that disappears if nobody watches it. Like and subscribe. The real weapon the Seabees built was not on the beach. It was inside the island. General Kurebayashi had spent a year building 11 miles of tunnels and roughly 1,500 cave and bunker positions connected by underground passages. Every hill on Iwo Jima was hollow, and the way the Marines cleared those positions was a system they called blowtorch and corkscrew. Infantry found a position by drawing fire. Flame tanks roasted the entrance. Then a bulldozer sealed it shut. Clinton Trefethen, a machinist's mate with the 133rd, was one of the men who did the sealing. He described it on camera. He would go in with Marines and doze the cave entrance full of dirt. Then they would throw smoke bombs inside, and smoke would come up somewhere else on the hillside through a connected shaft. He would drive to the new smoke and cram that full of dirt too. Then smoke would come out another place, and another. He chased the smoke across the hillside until nothing came out anywhere. The Japanese, he said, lived underground like gophers. This decision seemed small at the time. It was not. Roughly 3,000 Japanese soldiers were still alive underground when the island was declared secure on March 26th. Some of those sealed positions became permanent tombs. Sergeant Bill Ganaust, the Marine cameraman who filmed the famous flag raising on Mount Suribachi, was killed inside a cave on Hill 3, 62A on March 4th. Marines blew the entrance shut with TNT immediately after, sealing his body inside with the Japanese defenders. His remains have never been recovered. On D+6, Trefethen's own bulldozer hit a mine while grading a road. He had made one cut, reversed, and tracked back over the same line. The second pass did the trick. The mine blew his helmet off and knocked a track loose on the dozer. He survived. He told that story almost word for word 60 years later in a book called Black Hell, which is the only full-length history of the 133rd Naval Construction Battalion at Iwo Jima. And here is where the numbers harden the story. The 133rd lost 42 killed and 203 wounded in 36 days. That is 245 casualties out of roughly 1,100 men, 25%. The heaviest losses of any Seabee battalion in the entire Second World War. They received 328 Purple Hearts, 10 Bronze Stars, and the Navy Unit Commendation. They were denied the Presidential Unit Citation. The denial stood through multiple appeals, including a 2012 letter to President Obama, endorsed by a retired lieutenant general and a colonel of the 23rd Marines. No Seabee at Iwo Jima received a Navy Cross or a Medal of Honor. You would think someone would have said something. Nobody did. The strategic justification for the entire battle rested on 3 airfields. The Seabees built all of them under continued fire. The first American fighter landed at Motoyama No. 1 on February 26th, D+7. The first emergency B-29 landing happened on March 4th. The bomber was named Dynamite, a B-29 from the 9th Bombardment Group flying from Tinian. Its pilot, Lieutenant Raymond Malo, brought 11 men down on a runway that Seabees had graded, while snipers were still picking off operators at the far end. one Seabee tactic for surviving the airfield work, says everything about how dangerous the job was. As the bulldozer reached the end of the strip, a Seabee would pop out of a foxhole, jump onto the machine, turn it around, then jump off and dive back into a hole at the far end. A second Seabee would repeat the process on the return trip. 2 men, one driverless dozer going back and forth because sitting in the seat for more than one pass was not survivable. Malo himself was killed 5 weeks later, flying a different B-29 against Kawasaki on April 15th. The runway he landed on eventually reached 9,800 feet and handled 102 returning B-29s in a single day in July 1945. The official total was 2,251 B-29 at landings on Iwo Jima airfields during the war. The popular claim is that those landings saved 24,000 lives. The honest math does not support that number. About 80% of the landings were routine refueling stops. In June 1945 alone, more than 800 B-29s landed on Iwo, and not a single one was there because of combat damage. The real number of genuine emergency landings is a fraction of the headline, but the work of building the runway while men were being shot off the machines is beyond dispute. The dozers did one more job that nobody talks about. They buried the dead. The 133rd built the entrance arches for the 3rd and 4th Marine Division cemeteries. The 31st built the entrance for the 5th Division. Sometimes there were so many men to bury at one time that long rows of graves were dug and covered en masse with bulldozers after brief services. More than 5,000 American fighting men were eventually interred on the island. At the dedication of the 5th Marine Division Cemetery on March 21st, a Navy chaplain named Rabbi Roland Gittelsohn was asked to give the main sermon. Several Christian chaplains objected to a Jewish rabbi speaking over Christian graves. Gittelsohn withdrew to a smaller Jewish service rather than cause a fight. 3 Protestant chaplains boycotted their own ceremony in protest and walked across the cemetery to attend his instead. One of them borrowed his manuscript afterward and mimeographed thousands of copies for his regiment. The text was read into the congressional record and reprinted around the world. The island the Seabees built those cemeteries on is no longer called Ioto. Japan restored the original name Ioto in 2007. It is a closed military base now. Civilians enter 1 day per year. The beaches where Marines landed in 1945 now sit roughly 17 meters above sea level because the island is rising. Volcanic uplift pushes it up about 8 inches every year. In 1945, Seabees sank 24 transport ships and concrete barges to build a breakwater on the western beach. They placed them at roughly 20 feet of depth. Those ships are now sitting on dry volcanic ash, pushed above the waterline by the volcano underneath. Helicopter footage from 2021 showed them standing in the open air like ruins from another planet. The Seabees' work is literally rising out of the sea. At the 80th anniversary ceremony in March 2025, 7 World War II veterans returned to the island. A 99-year-old Navy corpsman named Charles Cram walked back to the beach where he had treated wounded Marines 80 years earlier and returned a Japanese flag he had taken from a cave. About 150 living Iwo Jima veterans remained. The generation that operated the machines and buried the dead is almost gone. Like and subscribe if you think these stories deserve to be told. And tell us in the comments if someone in your family served with the Seabees.